So
we've actually seen him before playing.
Hello and welcome back to the European Championships 2018. We are here in round 7.
Just 2 more rounds to go today before we make our first cut on our way to figure out who's going to be representing Europe at the World Championships later this year in Japan.
Yeah, and speaking of people who represented Europe at the World Championships, wow, that was really hard to say.
It's getting late.
Yeah, it's getting late. Was Samir Bachar, who we have in the feature match.
Representing France, and he's going to be playing Pendulum Magician against another huge name in Europe, Kristoffer Nielsen, sorry.
Yeah. So let's have a quick look at both of these guys' statistics. Actually, no, let's start with the decks first. So what are these guys playing?
So as I mentioned, Samir is playing the Pendulum Magician deck, and he's seeing a lot of success. I believe he's X1 or XO at this point.
Yeah, I think these guys are X1 or XO.
So still very much in the running and very much at the top of the tables.
Absolutely.
Kristoffer, on the other hand, is he's playing Gouki. He's also playing with the triple Neo-Spacian Aqua Dolphin tech in his deck.
Yeah, so from what we can see of the statistics, there's been only 33 games where Gouki has played against Pendulum Magician during the tournament. And of those 33 games, Gouki has a 44% win rate against Pendulum Magician. So that means that Pendulum Magician are favored by about 6%.
So far, that's super interesting. I mean, obviously, the stats don't take into consideration the dice roll or various other things. That could,
the players themselves, in fact.
Or the players either. It's just the straight stat. If you want to know, if you kept putting Pendulum Magician against this deck, so far the stats are leaning more to this as a favored for Pendulum Magician.
Yeah. So that's actually very interesting because Pendulum Magician was seen as not the meta, but kind of out, a bit outside.
Well,
so
yeah, I mean, and a lot of people said, hey, you get extra link, you lose. You can't play hand traps, so you can't stop the Gouki deck. But somehow they're currently sporting a positive win rate against Gouki.
Yeah. So as for the players, Kristoffer Nielsen actually has one of the highest win rates in the whole of Europe. Over 12 tournaments, he has an 81% win rate.
That is insane. Him and JY Sharif from the United Kingdom. Apparently, JY flew over to Kristoffer Nielsen. They've been training for like 2 weeks.
Yeah.
I was like, so you're basically in a hyperbolic time chamber? And they're like, yeah, that's exactly what we called it. And they just literally spent the last 2 weeks preparing for this event. And it's clearly paying off for Kristoffer this weekend.
Yeah, exactly. So let's take a look at Samir's record. Currently on 69.3%. That's still really strong.
That's very
but only 6 tournaments. So.
Well, not so many tournaments, but he's showing up here. In fact, he was the European champion of Berlin last time we were here, so he's come back to
the home ground.
Try and take it again from the same location.
Yeah.
But I think that's enough from us and the mathematician we got here. Luke with a beard would be the mathematician, just saying.
Yeah.
I think we should throw it over to our 2 commentators who's going to be casting your match today.
Yeah, let's take it over to Oliver Gurman and Thomas Rose.
Well, thank you guys. I think you had like all the information that you need about these 2 guys. We mentioned that Kristoffer Nielsen is a real juggernaut in Europe. By far the most successful Danish player.
Yeah, and both of these players are absolute huge players in the European scene. They're undefeated so far this weekend, and I'm not surprised, but one of them is going to go through this match still undefeated, and the other one's going to be advancing on 6-1.
Right. And Samir, one thing we didn't mention is that before he won the European Championship in Berlin 2 years ago, the French dueling scene was really going on like not exactly a hot streak, pretty much the opposite of that. They hadn't been won a tournament in a very, very long time, and he was basically the one, he almost felt like the messiah for them. That's why they kept celebrating his victory so much, throwing him up in the air and singing the Marseillaise, and he was basically God in that moment for all the French duelists. He was overjoyed, and ever since he put in the work, learned something about the other decks, of course. He got even more experience, and also his English has improved. So you can tell he has been talking to other players in Europe, doing his homework, and now he comes prepared for this tournament.
How's this tournament gone so far then? What has he been seeing off on the earlier rounds?
We're going to talk about that, but let's take you guys to the match because we don't want to fall too far behind the main event. All right, so while these guys are still shuffling up, we can take a quick look. So Samir, we mentioned he's undefeated. He went up against Roy Riedel in round 1 against a dinosaur player. He won every single match. Let's just not deal with that. He went up against Dinosaur, True Draco, Invoked Mech Knight, True Draco again, some other deck.
That was the Lightsworn deck that we saw last round. He played in round 5.
That was Georgios. That was the one lost that Georgios had at that moment, if I remember correctly.
Yes.
And also against Sky Striker Trickstar. So he has seen almost all the various decks that are being played, at least played more than once in this tournament. And on top of that, a Lightsworn deck.
So here we see Chris has won the die roll, and he's got his combo. He makes the Invoker, and there's no Effect Veilers or Ash Blossoms to stop that effect. We see no hand traps, in fact, for Samir. And as we heard mentioned from Analyst Desk, the Pendulum deck, this is not a conventional Pendulum deck. It's playing some Zephyr cards, so it's not the usual Pendulum Magician, but any kind of Pendulum deck really struggles if they have to play into an extra link opening board.
And it's also that he seems to be, since he's combining these two archetypes, I don't think he even has the space, or at least he felt like he didn't have the space, to insert any hand traps here. I'm just going over the deck list, and I can't really see a single hand trap here.
It looks like just a lot of Pendulum cards in the monsters,
Right.
but we've discussed that previously when we were talking about Pendulum decks. They can't afford to be playing those hand traps because any card in your hand that isn't a Pendulum card really dampens the consistency of the deck.
Yeah. So if we take a quick look at the player match history of Kristoffer Nielsen, who is, I think he's going to be busy for the next 5 minutes with that Gouki combo here. He went up against Sky Striker Trickstar in round 1, then against Sky Striker without Trickstars in round 2, another Sky Striker in round 3. He beat True Draco in round 4, then again Sky Striker Trickstar, and again Sky Striker Trickstar. So his deck did exactly what it was supposed to do. It gave him the upper hand against the elephant in the room, let's just call it what it is. The most popular deck going into this tournament. And we're going to see if him and the other Gouki players are going to be able to turn the statistics upside down and end up with the most popular deck in maybe the top 64.
You can really see here the time that he's put into these combos. He's going about it incredibly quickly. He knows exactly what he's doing. He's not umming and ahhing about which cards to discard, when to activate his effects. He knows exactly what combo he has to do. He doesn't want to get caught up in time procedures. He's just going through the motions that he's practiced 100 times.
Yep. I would be surprised if it were any different. Like Kristoffer Nielsen has been a household name in Europe. Denmark is not known for a gigantic dueling scene, but he is like the standout guy there. There's another Danish player, and his name eludes me right now, who has been playing dinosaurs with quite some success for a couple of years. That was basically when Konami first started doing coverage. That's like something like 6 years ago. I think his name is Kim Just Jensen, if I'm not mistaken.
It's not a player that I know so well, but I only know Kristoffer so well because he often flies over to the UK and plays in our regionals.
I think he even flew over to the US a couple of times. So he's one of those globe travelers that are playing Yu-Gi-Oh! Around the world, living the dream.
And in tournaments in Germany he's attended as well. He really goes wherever he can. He's getting success. You heard there that he has above an 80% win rate, and that is
almost unheard of.
For the number of tournaments that he's played in, that is absolutely ridiculously high.
Yes, and that puts him easily into the, I would say, the 1% of players that have such a win rate. Because like from the top of my head, I know like 3-4 guys that sometimes have a win rate like that. Not even every season. It's people like Joshua Schmidt, Marcello Barberi. And we heard that JY has a win rate of that at the moment. And I think that's pretty much it. There's like a handful of players that have such an impressive record. And as you mentioned, with the many tournaments that he's playing, to still have that record is even more impressive.
Yeah, I think 1% would even still be an overestimate.
Right.
I think perhaps 1% of players would have a better than 70% win rate, and it would be a 0.1% that would have the 80% win rate that we see from those kind of players.
That could be the case. But before we sound like a Bernie Sanders rally, we're just going to focus on the match at hand and see where Kristoffer Nielsen is going to go here.
He's coming towards the end of his full Gouki combo. Just putting out piece by piece.
Oh, and actually there's a very good point that has just been made in the chat. that Kristoffer has an excellent reputation going basically invincible in the Swiss rounds, but he's losing early in the top cut. And that is something that I have to admit is true. I'm not saying that he's always losing early, but he's often losing in the top cut. Even in the top 8 player profiles, we don't see him that often. He's basically always in the top cut, whether we're playing top 64, top 32, doesn't really matter. But he very often gets kicked out of the top cut because that's where Lady Luck is no longer smiling on him or something like that.
Oh dear, Samir picks up the Droll and Lockbird for the 6th card.
Oof. That just hurts. That's just so hurtful. This is one of those moments where you really feel bad about your deck. But we said we weren't sure whether he's playing any hand traps. Now that riddle has been solved. Just trying to find the card on his deck list.
It'll be here. It's in French, so
all right.
They don't all stand out quite so easily.
Yeah. And that is it for game number 1. Kristoffer Nielsen is playing a game of solitaire for 5 minutes, which is actually quite quick, considering the many summons that he performed here. And after those 5 minutes, Samir draws into the card that he would have needed a little bit earlier. And that means Kristoffer Nielsen is just going stronger than ever.
Yeah, this time we will at least be able to see what Samir's deck can do when he's playing first. What hand traps does Kristoffer have between his main and side deck?
It looks a bit different here. We see 3 copies of Ash Blossom and Joyous Spring together with 3 copies of Droll and Lockbird. That's it for the main deck. We should point out the Neospatian Aqua Dolphin, so he's trying to play around the opposing hand traps. And also called by the Grave, by the way. And then he's got 3 more copies of Ghost Ogre and Snow Rabbit in the side deck.
So yeah, he will be able to side into having 6 hand traps against Samir for this game too. He sides the Ghost Reaper and Winter Cherries as well, but without Heavy Metal Foes Electromite, those won't be coming in for this matchup.
What are his targets for the Ghost Reaper and Winter Cherries anyway?
Primarily for the mirror match, where you take out the Assault or even the Firewall Dragon to prevent the full combo. Some Gouki hands, if they're particularly strong, still will be able to continue to play without Assault, but the boards that you end on if you don't have a Firewall Dragon are reliably much less powerful.
I see. Interestingly enough, we can see on the deck list that Kristoffer Nielsen has been receiving a warning for bent cards, which I would just say that's a result of him just playing so much. He's just probably going to be like playing for days and days and days without end. At some point, the cards just gave in. They're like, stop it, stop torturing us.
Well, he wastes no time with his combos, nor with his shuffling.
Yeah, it's quite impressive. This is the closest you can get to a dueling robot in a human's clothing. And as somebody else pointed out, he does have a poker face. He seems really hard to being thrown off his game here.
And Samir, of course, just super excited on the other side of the table.
Samir is the absolute opposite. He does not have a poker face whatsoever. That would be a huge misdirection if anybody claimed that. You can see what's happening in his face, and that's one of the things I like about this guy. All right, so now he's going to go first. And
what do we have in the hand? Magispector Cat, Abyss Actor Curtain Raiser, Droll and Lockbird, Foolish Burial, and Pot of Desires. So the Foolish Burial will get his way to the Dark Worm. Dark Worm being huge off Foolish Burial, getting a monster for half of your Electromite and a scale into your hand as well.
And Ghost Ogre and Snow Rabbit is waiting in Kristoffer's hand.
That will likely be used on the summon of the Heavy Metal Foes Electromite.
So he's not completely without place here. However, we should point out that Samir now has a Droll and Lockbird. So maybe this time he can hang in there a little bit better.
Not with the Called by the Grave sat in the hand for Kristoffer.
Oh, right. It's always like you just look at one card and you think you can make a statement. Nope, so much interaction in this game. All right, but 2 more cards for Samir Bachar. Thanks to the pot.
Yeah, Samir experiencing a little bit of conflict of synergy in his hand there, having both the Foolish Burial for Darkworm and the Abyss Actor Curtain Raiser that I believe you can only summon from your Pendulum scale if you have no monsters.
That is indeed correct, yes.
So he'll instead go for the Cat and take the Search in the end phase and link those 2 away for the first Electromite. I think he might be deciding whether or not he needs to use the effect on summon. He's fearing for the interaction with Ghost Ogre.
Yep.
He's chosen to, and he hits that Ghost Ogre that perhaps he knew that there was potential for it, and he decided that he could still play through it even if it was there. He now does have the empty board if he wanted to use the Curtain Raiser.
Right.
But instead, no, he needs to have it in his Pendulum scale to enable the Pendulum summon.
Well, all of that is working out pretty well for Samir.
And just a throwback to our comments a moment ago about the Cooled by the Grave. If we look over on the other side, we see Samir has Imperial Order in hand. So he will be able to actually take out that Cooled by the Grave if it's used in response to his Droll and Lockbird.
That's going to be an interesting chain if we get to see that with Hand Trap and then in response the Called by the Grave and then an Imperial Order. They don't get that long anymore, the chains.
No, we don't. We certainly don't see the chain burn showing up much on.
No, not very often.
Yeah, I was talking to Matt about burn decks possibly making more of a showing with the new cards from Battles of Legend. There is the Time Lord that halves your opponent's life. We'd been talking about chain burn with Time Lords, and then we realized that even the chain burn decks don't make long chains anymore. They're just burn decks.
Right. Yeah, nobody's got time for that. All right, where's Samir going here? What is the card he's looking for?
He might be summoning out a second copy of Electromite. He hasn't been able to use the effects of it on the field yet this turn, except for the on-summon effect of the first one. Kristoffer just checking the text on Harmonizing Magician. It can't be used for a Synchro, Xyz, or Fusion with a non-Magician, but it can be used as a link material with that Zephyr card.
Yeah, some of those cards, they have these conditions that try to make them weaker, and then a new game mechanic comes along and just completely throws it out the window.
Yeah, the original being Scapegoat can't be used for a tribute summon.
That would have been my next example, in fact. Yes. Somebody back then was like, oh, this is way too broken if you can use it for tributes. And then somebody else thought that it's a really good idea to bring Link summons to the game.
Well, even prior to then, we saw Scapegoat being used in a plant format around 2011, 2012 sort of time. People using Scapegoat and a glow-up bulb to make then a Cheeria Beast.
Yeah. Yeah, there are ways to make it work. Or Metamorphosis, if we go even back further, but now some of you guys are going to be like, okay, this is way back.
Yeah.
I don't remember this card. What did it do? Metamorphosis.
Well, a lot of players still play with Goat format decks,
yeah.
So it should be reasonably well known.
It should be. And you never know.
Here we see the summon of Terratop, searching for the Takatomborg, and I expect the Droll and Lockbird will come down immediately afterwards, and then we will be able to see played out the big chain that we were just talking about. There's the Takatomborg, and there's the Droll and Lockbird. Chris just shuffling his deck before we see Chainlink 2. And finally, Chainlink 3, up comes the Imperial Order.
Yeah. The only thing that could have prevented this was a stroke for Samir Bachar, and we certainly don't hope that's going to happen here. So, yeah, Kristoffer Nielsen is biting that apple, one of the rotten ones. And now he is under the effect of the hand trap. And, of course, there's also an Imperial Order on the field now, which is going to stop his instant fusion.
Yes, and further to that, there's still the Zephyr counter trap that was set to Samir's side of the field, taking down whatever threats Chris can try and put out under the lock of the Droll and Lockbird.
Yeah. And the price you have to pay of banishing one Zephyr monster in your extra deck is a small price to pay when you get to negate one of the strongest cards that your opponent can throw at you.
Yeah, he'll just be waiting for anything that really threatens his board presence, but we haven't seen anything that's a problem for him yet.
Not yet, no. All right. But Samir needs this, of course. I mean, Kristoffer is, after all, leading 1-0. After that, big solitaire turn 1 in the first game.
So Chris will here be special summoning the Super X from his deck. Presumably just going the normal route through Isolde, if this Invoker is allowed to resolve.
what can Samir do against it? The
Could
Divine
use
Strike.
the Zephyr Divine Strike.
Because it can be
May
used
well
against
be
monster effects, of course. Yep.
That may have been a mistake, because we can see with perfect knowledge that Chris has a normal summon that allows him to get into directly into the assault.
How hard was it to see that coming?
With only 3 cards in hand, it would be very unlikely that Chris would have the pieces for a direct assault. So you could argue that it may be a little bit greedy to activate the Zephyr Divine Strike when he did.
Yep.
But greedy plays are often the way to seal out games without allowing your opponent to just chip away and get a little bit more advantage here and there.
Sometimes you really want to depress your opponent. You're not just gonna win like in terms of life points. You you also want to win the mental warfare and be like, this is maximum depressing, and then your opponent's like, oh my god, I can't win this match.
Yeah. For Samir, the safe play would certainly have been to allow the Invoker to resolve, allow the Suprex to be summoned, allow the Assault to be summoned, and then activate the Divine Strike on the effect of the Assault to clear out the Link 2 off the field and leave Kristoffer in a position where he still has that normal summon play available in his hand, but he can't use the effect of Assault to summon from deck because he's already attempted to activate it this turn.
Right. How likely is it that Kristoffer Nielsen has never been in this situation before?
I'm sure he's been behind in the game plenty of times. I doubt he will have been behind the game playing against Zephyr very much. Zephyr is not a deck that we see a great deal of, but he'll know how to play it. He will have practiced against everything, so he'll know what he's doing.
So he has a plan B and a possible plan C.
Yeah, he'll stay cool and he'll play the best that he can. Perhaps the best isn't good enough this match, but he'll be making the best of every opportunity presented to him.
Okay. That's very high praise. Now he's left... He's got 2 cards in hand, is that correct? Oh yeah, Phoenix Blade was the other one. Only being discarded, so Imperial Order is not going to do much here.
Yes, the Unicorn gets rid of Purple Poison, of course not being shuffled into the deck, instead banishing as it was special summoned by the effect of Harmonizing Magician. And then Unicorn just attacks over the Electromite.
But that should be it for Kristoffer. He's got only the instant fusion remaining in his hand, which is not going to do much. Does he have any graveyard effects? Let's just quickly look at his
He has
graveyard.
the Divine Sword engraved that he can add back before ending his turn, but that won't be achieving anything this turn.
Okay, so he does that, but... or he might not.
He may consider not wanting to activate it if he wants to ensure that his potential top deck Gouki rematch would still be live next turn, but no, he does go ahead with the effect.
And it is back to Samir, who does have an Imperial Order, which is so far not locking himself out because he doesn't have any.
No, Kristoffer's continuing to make plays here.
Oh.
He wants to summon the Nightmare Mermaid and get the Ibli from his deck by discarding that Phoenix Blade again. If he summons a Link 2 to give the Ibli back to Samir, Samir will not be able to special summon anything other than Link summons, and he might not have Link monsters other than Electromite in his extra deck.
I wouldn't have seen that play coming, not even from a mile away. So that again is just telling you something about Kristoffer Nielsen, who even when somebody else is like, okay, I think that's it for the turn, he's like, no, I can go further, and I will go further. Here it comes, and there's Ibli on his opponent's side of the field, and now I think he's feeling satisfied.
And of course, the life points are going to keep ticking away from that Imperial Order.
Yeah. It's an alternative win option in some cases, that you just have your opponent burn himself with Imperial Order. But there's an option for Samir.
Yes.
He gets rid of it, and Kristoffer's not happy. We said earlier he does have a poker face. This was one of those few moments where it cracked a little bit.
Yeah, the Ibli lock was only effective if you can either couple that with an extra link if your opponent happens to have the Nightmare Mermaid in their extra deck. Here we see scales 4 and 1, I think, for harmonizing. Oh no, it must be 8 if he's special summoning the Supreme King Gate 0.
Those gate monsters are also quite interesting. Don't see them that often. I think we cannot bring them up here, so I'm just gonna restart that here, so we can have perfect information again for you guys.
And I think that's Chris conceding the game.
There we go. That is 1-1 with Samir Bachar tying the score between those two. Not bad. Nice comeback from him. So now the app is working again, but we don't even need it because there's nothing on the field, obviously. So maybe let's try and pay close attention to what's happening in terms of side decking. There's a RAS fear mode that Samir went for immediately in his side deck cards.
Yeah, one of the very few outs to a fully resolved Gouki extra link combo is that RAS Sphere mode, so he'll be really hoping that he can have that if he doesn't have a hand trap to prevent that board from resolving in the first place.
Yeah, he's got those 3 copies is what is supposed to go in, if I see that correctly. And he's just thinking about the 3rd card that needs to go out for them. On the other side, Kristoffer is doing quite a bit more. He's building 2 piles here and now double checking what he wants to take out.
He may be putting in the Twin Twisters. Those can be very strong playing first against Zephyr deck. Just taking out 2 scales.
I think I just saw them in the side deck. So I think he's confident enough that he can go all the way without them. And now it's back to shuffling with 19 minutes on the clock. So both of these guys still have some time. And who do you think is the favorite going into that 3rd and deciding duel? Is it going to be Kristoffer because he goes first?
Yes. With these 2 decks, the favorite is always going to be whichever player is able to play first. A Droll and Lockbird can really turn things on its head, but even playing full 3 copies in a 40-card deck, that's a 1 in 3 chance. So Gouki will be leading us off here. And I don't think there are any Ash Blossoms for Samir, so I think it may just be the Ghost Ogres that he has to shut down the turn 1 play.
What do you think? Both of these guys are kind of used to playing in the feature match area. Kristoffer probably even more so than Samir. What difference is gonna the new feature match area make this weekend where everything is so wide open?
I don't think that's going to affect these guys.
You think they're just in the zone?
These are veterans of feature matches. Like, they know what the pressure's like, they know what the lights are like. I'm sure Chris and Samir, both of them, are just going to be sat there playing their game.
Okay. So Chris is allowed to go first. We do have the hand of Samir, and he does have a Droll and Lockbird. That is good news if you're fighting for the French here.
Cooled by the Grave in the hand of Kristoffer Nielsen.
Wow.
We're going to see a bit of a repeat of the previous game, I think, but without an Imperial Order to follow up as Chainlink 3.
Yes, and that's going to make all the difference here. With Kristoffer Nielsen immediately unleashing the combos of his Gouki deck. And going to town, as Luke likes to call it.
Yep. The only real out here for Samir is if he's able to draw a Winged Dragon of Ra Sphere mode as the 6th card.
It's kind of crazy. When there were these times when we would do written feature matches, if you have to write down what's happening, you need to be a really, really fast typer when Kristoffer Nielsen is added.
So you see the effect of Super X gets back the rematch, and Isolde adding a Super X because he's already used the effect. He's not worried about the fact that he can't use it for the rest of the turn. Droll and Lock, Chainlink 2, and Chris is going in.
Yeah, and you just see Samir who's like, nah, okay. I don't like this, but what else can I do? So now, that is it in terms of responses from Samir Bachar. He does have some more cards in hand, of course, but none of them can do something on his opponent's turn. He's got a Pot of Desires. Maybe he's gonna find the Winged Dragon of Ra Sphere mode, the one card that could get him out of the precarious situation that Kristoffer Nielsen is currently putting together. But that's pretty much it. What else is there? Is there anything else in his deck where we're like, okay, this could turn things around?
I'm reasonably sure that Sphere mode is the only top deck here for Samir. And I think it has to be his natural top deck draw for turn, because I'm expecting that we'll see Trigate Wizard for Kristoffer. possible that Kristoffer would not choose to negate the Pot of Desires if he fears evenly matched, but that will be an interesting thing to read, whether or not he thinks that Pot of Desires is the only out for Samir.
Yeah. In case you guys are wondering, we're working on that technology, so in like 2 years we can bring you a live feed from the brains of the players. So then we're gonna have like telepathy. There's gonna be some interesting inner monologues that we could have in the coverage, to be honest.
I'm sure there'll be a lot of reactions that we couldn't publish in the coverage if players lose, though.
Okay, well, that is a fair point. So we need like a filter technology or something. But just imagine somebody's in the top 8 and he's about to win, and then he's like, I should have had second breakfast this morning. Or something like that. Completely unrelated to the game. And you're like, this guy is really calm right now.
I mean, I'm sure that the mind read technologies would help a lot with ruling disputes and judge interventions.
What is the... Yeah, that is true. What is the inner monologue that Kristoffer Nielsen is going through right now? Is it going to be like, I'm so bored of this. I've done this all day. All of these motions. Why do they need me to perform them? I could just like assemble my field and my opponent's like, yeah, I'm okay with that.
At this point, I think Chris is just so in the zone. He just sees like the matrix wall of numbers coming down around him.
Yeah, in terms of attack and def stats of monsters and, of course, level stars. All right. So you guys have seen this in the first duel. Kristoffer Nielsen, he's just going at it. He's in the zone. If you've ever seen anybody in the zone, this is what it looks like. Or if you've never seen anybody in the zone, this is what it looks like. He looks like on autopilot. Just goes through the motion, and one after another Link monster is entering play.
Yeah, we see every single Link summon. The effect of Firewall Dragon triggers again just to put more and more monsters from his deck into his hand and then out onto the field.
And we see that in the faces of the audience as well. They are looking at the big match, and many of them are in a in a state where they're like absorbing what's happening, but it seems like they all know what's happening. They can all tell this is not looking good for Samir Bachar, the former European champion in 2016 in this very venue. Just right next door, because we were in a different hall back then.
Yeah, we see the very same combo that we had in Game 1 coming out again here.
So there's the magical U, which means you don't play the game anymore because you cannot summon anything from your extra deck. And with that, Kristoffer Nielsen is relaxed and feeling confident that he can pass play.
Is this card the Winged Dragon of Ra Sphere Mode?
It's a spell card, isn't it? It is. Oh, sorry, it's a Pot of Desires. Is that the second Pot of Desires that he just drew? Yes, it is. Ugh. Not exactly what Samir wanted.
And the Ash Blossom negates it, and the game is over.
That should be it, with a perfect lock assembled on the side of Kristoffer Nielsen. Samir might be thinking about something here. Is there anything else that we might have missed here?
Samir can barely even play a card, let alone make a real play.
You're not gonna prove popular with the French duelists if you keep down talking their big hero here.
I'm not down talking Samir. I'm just
it's just
talking,
the facts.
singing the praises of an extra.
Apparently, it is just the facts, and the facts are stating they're painting a very one-sided picture with Kristoffer Nielsen doing. Wow, that was quite a dominant performance in 2 out of the 3 duels when he went first, just putting all of those blue monsters on the field, saying, I got everything, I got backups within backups, and you don't get to play the game.
Yeah, absolutely. I think we also saw the real importance of the die roll there.
Yeah.
So both players having an easy ride of the game where they get to play first and not really getting any entry into the game where they're forced to try and break a board.
Although we have to say that there is an element of skill in this game that can make the difference. That is, of course, the way you build your deck. Deck building is still very, very important. Cards like the Winged Dragon of Ra Sphere Mode could have turned this around. Yes, you still need to draw those cards, which is not that easy, and especially hard to manipulate, and barely even legal half the time when people are doing it. but there are ways around it.
We see neither player here opting to play evenly matched, which could have been really huge for this matchup.
That could have been something. All right, guys, that is it from our quick analysis. We're going to bring you some more analysis from our friends over at the desk. So let's head it back to Luke and Matt.
Thank you very much, Oliver and Thomas. We are here with Kristoffer Nielsen.
Yes.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
That was a big match that we were looking forward to. Former European champion and yourself, we've heard so much about.
Thank you, thank you.
Yeah, come a bit closer to the mic. People love standing away from these, man. You got to talk right into the end. That's why it looks like I'm eating it.
Thank you.
Good. That was a good match.
It was a really good match. I look really forward to play every game I had to. And it's such a good opponent as well. He was nice, no problem there. So it was the best match. It was a good one.
Samir is known really for being such a friendly
He's really
guy.
friendly. He's really, really friendly. And he was a nice opponent.
Yeah. That's good. That's good. I like it when I hear people enjoying the match.
I did.
So what's your current score?
I'm 7-0.
7-0, okay.
At the moment. So you're living up to the dream again. You're going to make the top cut.
I will.
And then you're not going to lose.
I will win this. I will win this event.
Nice.
This is my time to shine. I want to go to Worlds.
Well, that's a good attitude to have.
It is.
Funnily enough, before the start of this round, the matchup that we were looking at was Pendulum, so not necessarily the Zephyr version, but against Pendulum, Pendulum's actually favoured by 56% to 44.
Seriously?
Yeah, we were surprised by that because we figured like when you go for the full extra link with the tri-gate, how does Pendulum play? But for some reason they're still edging about a 6% win rate over Gouki. So
just at this tournament, that is.
So can you think of how they could be doing that?
I don't know. I think it's like because a lot of people here in Europe don't want to choose to play with the Gumbler. And you can still side card like Raz, Fiamode, you can still side cards like Lava Golem and all that. And myself as well, I didn't choose to play the Gumbler because I think like I just thought the version I played was better consistent. I could get to play every game. Haven't been a game yet I couldn't play. So that's why I'm looking for a consistent deck to a consistent tournament.
There's one moment during the game that I really, really wanted to ask you about. Yeah? The moment that you got the mermaid out when you dibblied him, you looked kind of shocked. Why was that?
I already realized I lost because I couldn't get enough cards into. So I didn't hopefully it was enough to hit his skill, maybe draw a Gouki, search a rematch, and then play from there. So that's why. And that you say Pendulum, someone say, and hopefully you didn't have a scale because you already know the high scale and the low. That was all 5, so you couldn't Pendulum any monsters. So I thought it was enough, but.
Yeah, it was just interesting. So some of the facial reactions, the commentators were saying how kind of poker-faced you were. You were able to be very calm
you give very
throughout the game.
little away, but there's sometimes where it just kind of it feels like it slips a little bit.
Yeah, it's like I try to do it. I also, when I win, my friends always say like, "Why you look so sad?" It's like I'm not sad. It's just like doing this all the time. I watched a lot of players back in America played, so since I was a little kid, since I started playing, and I see the people reaction. How like also Robert Boryachin, one of the commentators in America now, he always did a trick when he could. So you sit down and then he had his hands off for his head, so nobody could see his eyes when he played. So when he to the sizes like a horse, so nobody could see what you think about. So that's why I also try to not give so much away.
Keep it calm.
Yeah, keep it simple.
Yeah. That's good. That's good.
So is there any matches this weekend that you are fearing playing, or are you actually just confident enough to take everything on?
I will win.
So you're
he's going to
Optimus
win.
Prime, you're like, I'll take you all on. You're not even worried.
It doesn't matter. Any of I have to play, it doesn't matter.
Then, here begs the question. Who do you think in this entire room, look at them all, look at how glorious this whole room of players is there any one of them that you think, damn, I don't want to see him sat in front of me in the finals?
In front of me in the final doesn't matter because I'm already going to war.
Okay, top four. Sorry. Top four.
It's a one. Marcello Barberi.
Okay.
He crossed my dream last year at top 8 of Euros, so I don't want to play against him again.
Yeah, well, I must say, if all of the players that you would have picked, I would also, Marcello would definitely be up there.
He played really well last year, and unfortunately I lost to him in the top 8.
Yeah, but do you feel like you're stronger this year?
I don't feel stronger. It's like I just feel like I have I think myself like a really good season the last couple of 6 months.
Yeah, your win percentage
your win rate is insane.
I don't know if you knew that. It was like 81% this season.
Yeah. It's like I have top 4 YCSs back to back this season, in America and in Europe, and I was undefeated in 2 of them out of 4.
Wow. That's
You've had a really good run this season, and you're showing up at the WCQ as well. Have you been to Japan before?
No, I really want to go.
It's a really good trip, and I hope you make it there, man.
JY already told me he liked it, so I'm really sad.
I remember JY having a really good time.
He did.
What do you think you would most enjoy being in Japan? Just play one of the things for me is just being able to play against the Japanese players. What's yours?
I want to see the culture. I've been to Thailand before.
Yeah.
But I also want to see Japan. And if we're going to Worlds, we do it like a family trip. So my family will come with me.
Okay.
So me and my brother will go to Japan and have vacation after. And I love playing Yu-Gi-Oh! So that's why I'm doing it. So I could play to World Championship, represent my country, and represent Europe, or try to play against the Japanese in America. Well, it's the biggest dream a little kid like me could have since he start playing.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, you've taken some great steps towards that dream today. That was an excellent match. Thank you for your time, Kristoffer.
Yeah,
Thank you.
Good job, congratulations, and good luck in the rest of the tournament.
Thank you.
Just 1 second, we're going to say goodbye to everyone.
That's okay. No, you can leave
Just
us if you
ditch
like.
us on the stand. I'm too cool for these guys. I'm going to go hang out with them.
I was going to ask you, have you got anybody to say, thank you to or anything like that?
I have two really special person in my life.
Okay.
JY Sarid and a guy called Grandpa. Me and JY will have a really nice friend together, and we call him Grandpa. He had cheated me and JY playing Yu-Gi-Oh! A long time now, and he has been one of the best friends I have in a long time. And he really pushed me through, say some really good idea. He's really good at building decks and all that, and a big shout out to both of them.
What's his name? Give it his name. We just know him as Grandpa. Is it Swanee?
It's Andrew Swan.
Yeah.
Angel Swan.
It is, yeah.
Andrew.
Swan, yeah.
Yeah, he's a very. I've known Swanee for maybe, I'd say maybe 14 years.
He's a nice person.
Yeah, he's a good guy.
He's every time. JY went to my house even a week before yours, so we could just test.
Talked about that actually.
Yeah,
JY told us all about it.
I was in Denmark. It's only a training camp the whole week, so he flied over. And I'm flying to UK a lot as well.
You came to the Nationals as well, didn't you?
I did. I
You
didn't do that well.
No, I
but
think you did okay.
Yeah, it was just a warm-up for this.
Yeah.
Really?
It's just a warm-up. This is the only tournament that matters in the year.
Yeah.
It's all the others that just practice.
All the YCSs, all the winners for those just felt suddenly hurt when you told them, your win's irrelevant. It's the WCQ.
I've never won a YCS or any tournament before, so I really want to win as well. So hopefully this is the weekend.
Yeah. Well, one more round today, and you're definitely shooing for the day 2 cut, and then going from there.
Yeah. Right, you can definitely go and hang out with your cool friends now. But wait, we're going to say goodbye to the viewers first, okay? Right.
Goodbye, Denmark, back home.
Yeah. So we'll catch you guys for round 8. See you soon.
See you soon.
Thank you.